Hello, and a very warm welcome to this, our first LinkedIn Live for 2024. We're planning a whole bunch of these this year, and we are very delighted to kick the year off with this explanation and discussion about how you can cross-channel market your business with our guest, Stu Lees. Now, before we get Stu up to have a bit of a chat, there are a couple of things to let you know about. The first is I'd like to let you know that behind the scenes here with me are my team members, Cher and Jilly. And any comments that appear on the LinkedIn feed by either of them are legitimate comments from us. If you spot anything pretending to be us, we have had a problem with an increase in spamming recently on our events. Please do ignore it. You do not need to go off this event or go to any other links to hear what Stu and I are talking about today. Now, as I say, welcome. My name's Lynnaire Johnston. I'm the host of our LinkedIn Live event, and we are a small company based in New Zealand. At Linkability, we help businesses all over the world to leverage the power of LinkedIn to achieve their professional goals. Now, I'm an author. We write content. We also hold events, as you can see, and we produce a lot of content about LinkedIn. We have a newsletter, and we have an excellent site called linkability.biz, where you can go for dozens of hours of content about LinkedIn to upskill yourself so you too can learn how to leverage the platform to achieve your professional goals. Now, we welcome comments on our events and we welcome questions. And at the end of my discussion with Stu, we'll put those up on the screen, and you are very welcome to add yours to what we have so we can pick Stu's brain. Because just before we came on, he was telling me that this particular discussion about cross-channel marketing is one of the most common that he's currently having with clients. Now, just to set the scene from my end, let me explain to you why I wanted to have this discussion with Stu today. And that is because for a very long time, I have concentrated almost entirely on LinkedIn. Once I discovered the platform, really got involved and started helping other people with it, I more or less gave up any other online marketing apart from my website, and we do some email marketing. But generally, LinkedIn has been my focus. Now, there have been many instances recently where LinkedIn has arbitrarily removed people's accounts, either permanently or just temporarily, for all kinds of transgressions, which may or may not be public knowledge to most of us. And so consequently, the risk to me is very high. If I wake up tomorrow morning and my LinkedIn profile is gone, then my company page has gone, and so then has all my presence on LinkedIn. And that would be a huge risk to my business, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Now, I understand that I am unusual in this, and because a lot of people do more marketing than I do across other channels. We have a YouTube channel too, and we're going to be doing more with that this year, but pretty much I'm not anywhere else. I've had a dabble with Threads and got bored. I lost my Facebook business page when my account was hacked a couple of years ago and never bothered to replace it. Insta, not really done much more than that, than being personal, having a personal profile on there. So today we're wanting to talk about online channels for business and how we can just not put all our eggs in one basket. And so because of that, I wanted to invite Stu Lees, who I have known for years, to talk with us about this today. Now, Stu and I first met back when I was living in Auckland, and we were at the same BNI chapter. He and I have always got along well. We've kept in touch over the years, and we often find ourselves having a jolly good natter about all things to do with marketing. And today we're going to be talking about cross-channel marketing, including how to make that work for those of us on LinkedIn. So hi, Stu, welcome and thanks for making the time for us today.
Oh, kia ora, Lynnaire, and so good to see your smiling face again.
Well, we do enjoy our chats. They do tend to go on for a bit, though, don't they? So I hope you will set up with some water so we can keep on talking for as long as we've got ideas to share on this. Stu, for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm a self-taught marketer. I want to make that really, really clear because so many people I meet say things like, I could never do marketing, or I'm just not creative, or I wasn't built for this sort of stuff. And so I want to let you know that I'm a recovering technology nerd. I had an IT firm back when I met Lynnaire, kind of the mid-2000s, 2004, 2006 sort of circa. And I was burnt out. Like, the reason I got into marketing was because I was working too hard in sales. I had my own little small business. I was moonlighting 3 different networking groups, and, per week I was cold calling. I was doing all of this sort of stuff, this grind stuff that I thought was the right thing to be doing. And of course, I was spending like 60 hours a week at work, not seeing my wife, not seeing my children, not really enjoying work and life and business ownership much at all, and not really getting anywhere. So I don't know what actually triggered it. I think it was like a moment in the mirror. But one day I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna crack this marketing thing. And so that day I sort of focused on, I'm gonna put aside every single Friday from now on to work on top of my business and work on marketing. I'm going to delegate the rest and do all of those sorts of things. And it's like made one big strong promise. And for the rest of that year, I read every book. I borrowed books from people, went to the library, watched every course on YouTube that I could get for free. I subscribed to some good courses online. Some really terrible ones. I roped in friends from the advertising industry and sort of said, look, if I buy you lunch, can you kind of teach me some stuff, teach me about ads and things like that. And I did this for a whole year. And, I kind of got addicted to the learning process of it. I really, really enjoyed the learning, and I got very, very obsessive about testing marketing. So I went into this like so many people, and I sometimes feel like it too. I went into this whole thing like thinking I'm just such a rookie, but I'm gonna give it a try, and I'm just gonna overcome whatever stuff I need to overcome and do it. And over that kind of next 2-year period, some crazy stuff happened. I sort of won several marketing awards. We quadrupled our turnover. Company got several offers to be purchased. We expanded massively, got way too busy on the other end. So, we had that problem of like, that everyone says, it'd be a nice problem to have, of, 50 sales leads coming in on a single day. It was not a nice problem to have. It was awful. We ended up like restructuring our business to deal with it. But kind of that's what kicked it off. And since then, I've been involved in a bunch of businesses, both my own and working with large companies and small companies, and then spent the last few years consulting to businesses and sort of contracting out my services and coaching over COVID. I spent a good 2 years just coaching people in small business marketing. So, and at the moment, I'm working with a company in the States, helping them grow to a multi-million-dollar software startup world. I'm running their marketing team from New Zealand and just having a ball.
And you're also, this is a nag, you're also writing a book, Stu. I expect that when we sit down again next time, for you to be able to have a copy of your book sitting on the shelves behind you, like you've got a copy of mine right now. So just saying, so tell us, the book is going to be about shoestring marketing on a shoestring budget. Is that still the premise of it? It's been a while since we talked about that.
100%, and it's aimed at New Zealand, Australian markets. But as my brand has become more global, I realized that, something us small business owners and people who are in this sort of first 3 to 5 years of starting out, we love to do things for nothing, with nothing, right? And it's something that I had to do. Kiwis, everyone loves a bargain, right? We all know that catchphrase. And I think I wanted to, I've worked in agencies before. I've charged people out $250 an hour. I've sold people websites for 15, 20 grand. And I want to sort of speak back against some of the things people hear, which is you can't do marketing low cost. You can't do it without getting super experts involved. It's too complicated for you. I just kind of want to call BS on all of that stuff, And so you can, like you and I have done over the years, Lynnaire, you can self-teach. You can get over what you need to get over. If you can write down a good plan, you can just follow the plan, with a little bit of conviction. And if you surround yourself with the right sort of people and the right sort of energy, you can learn off them and you can grow. And that's kind of, I'm doing okay business-wise. So the book's kind of my mission in the world. It's just a thing I want to do to help people. What are they going to pay $20 for a book, and then hopefully they can get 5 clients from it? For me, that's like I'll be pretty happy if that happens, right?
Yeah, I found that having a book is a really great door opener for opportunities. So I'm going to be nagging, Stu. I want to see that book on my shelf really soon. So, okay, let's start talking then about what we're here to talk about today, which is cross-channel marketing. So tell me, as a starting point, do you think that my concern about the risk of this, of being involved heavily on one channel only, is valid, or am I just overreacting and catastrophizing? Which of those two do you think it is?
You're not catastrophizing. When I've been coaching people, I've had dozens of people through at a time in on my coaching program for marketing. Usually, people land on one end of the spectrum. They're either all invested in one channel. They spend all day on Instagram, they spend all day on LinkedIn, and all right, or they're spread too thin on every other channel, and they've got all of the automation tools in the world, and they're repurposing and reposting, and all because Gary Vee said it was a good idea, or some online ad said it was a good idea, and they have they're suffering from FOMO. I don't want to miss out on one client who might find me in this one channel, which I've never had a like or engagement in, but they continue to spend extra time in that channel, or they go back. It's like, I only feel comfortable in this channel, and I'm going to show up on this channel, but I spend all my time in it. And generally, not always, people in both of those areas have a tendency to say, look, I'm getting some indication of success, but actually the sales are not flowing through. So I think it's a really valid problem, because I think if you overuse one channel, here are the big risks in terms of overusing one channel. And for the sake of it, let's just talk LinkedIn for the moment. Mm-hmm. I've had 3 coaching clients who've lost their accounts, right?
Permanently.
We lobbied for one. You helped me lobby for one of him, because he was such a good dude and such a gem for the market, for the place. He got it back. Right. But understand that LinkedIn have going towards 1 billion people would be their goal on the platform. They don't have time to give it back to you if you do something that their algorithm blocks you on, right? It's like they don't have enough humans in order to respond to the customer problems. And remember, if you're not a paying customer, they really don't care. So number one, you could lose that entire marketing channel just through one slip up. Of course, hacking is a major problem right now, and lots of people get their accounts hacked. So that could happen. The thing that you and I, Lynnaire, talked about 3 to 6 months ago, which was, kind of the algorithm's coming, and all of a sudden you lose all of your reach on that channel, and you've got nowhere to go, and you're sitting there going, I put all of my eggs in this basket, and then someone went and changed the basket.
Yes.
Right. And
split.
I think when that happened, we had that conversation, Lynnaire, and I said to you, Ty-ho, don't worry too much. This is just waves in the ocean, and your reach will come back. Let's all just double down. And sure enough, that's what I've encountered as those sorts of things happen. But for me, it's and the one other thing is, which a lot of people don't think about too often, but when I talk to lots and lots of people and work with so many different businesses around the world, sometimes channels just misbehave, right? So I've had a number of clients who are like, I will not support Mark Zuckerberg anymore. Anything that we do, Stu, cannot be on the Meta platforms. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't think about that a year earlier. It's just because the channel or the people in the channel or whatever did something that upset them. And so they had to go and rebuild a whole lot of activity in other channels that weren't controlled by Meta. And so if they had had a couple of channels at least, then that would have had less impact to their business. Mm-hmm. And that's why, to me, it's a really important thing to diversify. And also what I find is something that I like doing is I'll be trialing things in Instagram, right? So here's an example. I did some work on a not-for-profit campaign over, I was doing it for free in the last 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I helped them build an Instagram account, right? Brand new account, no followers, right? We did 12 images and then we did a reel every 3 days. And I just helped them with the creative of the reel. And we were experimenting with hyper short reels, like 4-second reels. And humor. 4 seconds reels and humor. That was the experiment. And one of them went viral. Like it's a 2.2 million views, plays right now, 30,000 likes. It's quite funny, but it was a big surprise to me. I wasn't expecting anything. Like seriously, 0 followers on this account. The account's got maybe 300 followers now, but it's one reel had 2.2 million likes. So
that's bizarre.
I take that experience and go, oh, well, this channel was a really easy way for me to understand what do humans respond to. And now I'm taking that lesson and putting it into LinkedIn. And guess what? I knew this conversation would come up this morning. So I did a hyper small video this morning with a tiny bit of humor in it. And I put it into LinkedIn. And yes, I tagged you into it, Lynnaire, but it has got a ton of reach. Right?
I was surprised. I don't know how long it had been up before I found it or before you sent it to me, but I was really surprised at the number of likes that it had by the time I got to it. So it really, and it was, you're right, it's really short. I went, oh, that was really short. And then it started playing again. I went, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So it was about 10 or 11 seconds long. I think, now I've never done a video that length at all, but are you suggesting then that those hyper short videos might be fine for LinkedIn and for other channels? Because also talking about hyper short things, I saw that somebody from LinkedIn, one of the product people from LinkedIn, had written a post that, I kid you not, was 1 word long. That was it. So is hyper short a trend? And this is really not anything to do with this conversation, but we might come back to it. Hyper short, something that we should be watching as a trend. But let's then take that to other channels. And let's talk about what other channels are a good idea for us to be considering for business. I mean, I'm not talking about personal stuff here, but what can we use if we're not going to only be using, say, LinkedIn? Clearly, YouTube's a good start. I love short videos there, though. They could do.
Well, I wouldn't have known about the hyper short videos had I not been leaning into experimenting with TikTok and Instagram Reels for the last year, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's my duty to do that because I'm in marketing strategy, not in LinkedIn specifically. So it's my duty to understand what the channels are doing. I've also been experimenting with Reddit and Reddit ads, which has blown my mind. Right, I've been re-experimenting with hyper short videos on ads within Meta, Instagram, and Facebook, and of course YouTube Shorts. So that to answer the length thing, does size matter? Is like the nice segue there. No, it doesn't really matter. Long form videos work really well. Short form videos work very well with videos, and I think with anything. And you're an incredible writer, Lynnaire, so I think you'll really lean into the. David Ogilvy was famous for saying, 80% of your marketing spend is consumed by the headline, right? So if your media spend is $10,000 for your ad, 80%, if your headline isn't amazing, you're probably going to lose most of that 10K. And the same thing works for video, right? So what I will say is if your video is 3 minutes long, the first 3 seconds better be damn good.
Yes, if you want people to hang in there, absolutely.
And then you want to say for the next 15 seconds, you want to have something that holds them and you want to capture their attention with something else. So I would say that a long video should be actually a chaining of a bunch of really good short videos, right?
Yes.
And don't ramble on about one topic for too long. Go down the topic, pause, divert attention, recapture them, promise big, go down the next topic, pause, do the same thing. That's if you're wanting to do a long thing. And it's the same as if you're writing a book, Lynnaire, it's the same as if you're writing a blog article or a really good email, right? You want to grab their attention with a headline. You want to then fulfill it and over-fulfill those expectations with something that's truly going to get the emotional cortex of their brain going, whoa, aha moment, right? In business, we want to create aha moments mostly. In business to consumer and food and B2C, we generally want to be creating more pleasurable moments, right? So that's why food selfies work really well, because you're creating this pleasure moment in the emotional part of the brain. With business, we got to work on shock, right? Which I'm not a big fan of, shock and horror, right? That's the emotional response. You might use a pleasurable emotion or like I did in my video this morning, which people can go back to. I used awkwardness, right? Because it creates a small emotional packet that people like, what's it all about?
Identify with, yes.
Yeah. And or you use aha moments. And to me, the length doesn't matter as much as the how early the emotional part people can it gets through to the brain, and that emotional part sinks in order for them to respond with what you want them to respond with, right? And then the next question, right? The $1 million question, the $1 billion question. Which channel's best, Stu? And again, it's something that I get asked a lot. I've done entire webinars on just like choosing channels. I've done training programs that have just been like how to choose the best channel for you. So sadly, we don't have time to get through that. But I think the best way to answer the question is to throw a framework back at people. It's a framework that I tend to use, which is, what questions should you ask yourself when you're wanting to find a channel that's appropriate for your business that isn't the one that you're dominating on at the moment. So let's assume everyone's doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn or a lot of stuff on something else. Here's what I recommend you do. Write down some lists, right? So the first list I want you to write down is, I want you to write down everywhere where you see your customers, where you're absolutely sure your customers are on those channels. So it might be LinkedIn at the top if they're business customers, but it might be that, a couple of billion people are on Instagram, so we've got to have that in the list, and it might be on Facebook, and and in some cases, like for this company working in the States, it was Reddit and it was Twitter and it was Threads, and so you write down the list, but write it down in priority order in terms of where you think your local most likely to buy from you customers are, right? That's number one. Number two, if you haven't reviewed all of them, you're going to have to spend some time reviewing all of those channels and find your competitors. And what I want you to do is mathematically look at those competitors and find which channels those competitors are being engaged in. Not the ones, don't, just because they do a lot of high volume of content, that doesn't mean that they're killing it and successful. It just might mean that they're stupid and they're just banging their head against a brick wall. So where they're getting the most comments, most likes, the competitors whose customers you most want to pinch off, right? That's the second list. Write that down. Third list, what are your favorite ways of communicating? So Lynnaire's an incredible writer. You've been leaning into video, which I've seen over the last few years, but I would say, and of course you were on radio for many years, right? So, if you're watching Lynnaire's journey like I have been, she started off by writing. She then got into sort of posts with photos on it, and then leaned into video, and then LinkedIn then came back and was like, hey, here's an audio platform for your audio expertise. So Lynnaire's like headlong into that, right? And I want to really underpin this point. Channel selection is as much about you as it is about your audience, because it's not sustainable if you hate the channel. If you hate being on TikTok, like if you really hate it, if you hate like the comments that come back, if you hate the misogyny of Twitter, if you hate if you hate a channel, then it's just, it's not healthy to be on it all day long, right? It's not healthy to filter through those stuff. So make sure that you write down a list based on preference. What are your favorite, ways of communicating? So for some people, it might be writing. And if it's writing, then, you can write blogs, you can write emails, you can write web pages, right? Or you can write scripts and you can have them automatically read out using an AI reader. So there's lots of ways to do it, but you need to write down your favorite ways of communicating, in your comfort zone. Last couple of points. And I've already touched on, you need to write your favorite place that you like to spend time. So you've got LinkedIn one. What are the other favorite places? Right. And now you've got all these 4 things, right? Now there's going to be a correlation between those 4 things where you'll find your next channel, right? It's got your customers on it. It's got your competitors doing well on it. And it supports a type of format that you like, right? And you've got to go into this with an unbiased look. As an example, I'm working with a global software company at the moment. 44% of our web traffic comes from 2 blog articles, right? Thousands of people a month, because we look at the analytics. We wouldn't have guessed that, and my ego would have got in the way of saying that was something we need to lean into, because I'm so into social and ads and all these other things. So you've got to really go into this analytically first, right? And then, okay, now you've got your lists, right? You've got your second and perhaps your third place channels. The next one's going to be a hard one for a lot of people to swallow. I want you to test it rigorously. I want you to learn all about that channel, and I want you to give it at least 3 months, but ideally 6 months to post on, right? Because over that time, you're going to be learning from the engagement that you're not getting, and you're going to be learning from the engagement that you are getting. Over that time, you're going to be learning, you're going to spend more time on that channel than you ever have. So you're going to be learning about the nuances, the fact, that reels work better typically in terms of gaining attention on Instagram than beautiful photos do. And that your story is where you're going to get more sales from than, say, your posts, which is so different from LinkedIn, right?
Yeah. So do you mean stories as a format or stories as in telling stories, Stu? Just to be clear.
So I mean, so the difference is, so like on LinkedIn, as an example, a lot of people will be posting regularly, gaining attention in a variety of formats. They'll be either then engaging with the customers directly through direct messaging after perhaps an exchange in the comments, or they'll be doing things like this, like a webinar or invite me to a seminar, so that people can really feel them out as someone they might want to work with, right? So that's LinkedIn. On Instagram, as an example, you might be using Reels to get reach penetration, to get the attention, right? You might have some static posts that are coming in, which are just reinforcing and being on the feed. But your stories are usually what people are going to spend a lot of time in. It's about 30% of the overall real estate of Instagram. And that's where you can put things like hyperlinks to your downloads, hyperlinks to your courses, right? And of course, if someone responds to a story that you ask a question, you can then get into a DM conversation with them. You're invited to a DM conversation, and then you can engage them in a sales conversation. So it's each one of these different platforms has its own funnel method in order to get to the customer, in order for the customer to trust you enough to buy. And you can't do this by dropping your content into a reposting machine and hoping for the best. Right?
Oh, absolutely. People do that on LinkedIn and it doesn't work.
Yeah. I don't care how successful you are on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you're going to be immediately successful in Threads.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, success takes a while.
I believe that every channel, there is people who are successful from every industry.
Yeah.
Right? That's the truth. Right? I've never seen a channel where people aren't within reason. Right? There are some industries that some channels are banned from, and certain things that you can't do. But within reason, every channel I've seen, you will have someone in your niche who is winning customers from it.
That makes sense to me. Would you include Threads in, because it's fairly new, in your kind of lineup of some of these new channels? I did try it briefly, but I just got bored with it because, I don't know, I just got bored with it. I get bored easy.
I mean, the question is a common one. Should I try Threads? It's new, therefore the algorithm's pretty friendly, and Meta want to support it, and they've kind of really invested in it. And so, that week, everyone, including myself, dove into Threads and got pretty mediocre, if not nothing, results, and then got a feeling for what text-based social media is like, which can be pretty toxic and pretty rude and abrupt and just annoying. So I think if Threads is only a good idea if it passes the framework that I talked about, right?
Yep, like
Are
any
your
of the other.
customers on it? Are your competitors succeeding on it? Are you? Is it a format that you are able to operate in significantly for 3 months every day, or 4 or 5 times a week? And do you like the community? Right, that's the most important part of it. Is it a community that you like? Right, because there's a bunch of people who hate LinkedIn. Right, hate it.
Don't know why.
But and they do incredibly well on another channel. They might do incredibly well on YouTube. They might do incredibly well on Instagram. And those channels have their challenges as well. They have their algorithm problem. It's all the same problems. It's all the problems we have on LinkedIn. People have their own form of those problems on the other channels. But the thing is, that they've gotten past that consistency curve part where they're able to just intuitively, consistently smash out the content every week. And they are, I guess, talented and skilled enough to be a community member within that channel intuitively, and it not be a chore to go and reply to comments and to then go and comment on other people's posts and to repurpose and repost things. So yeah, it's it might seem weird, but I'm just such a believer that every channel has an opportunity. Every single channel has an opportunity, but it really comes down to the person working hard to learn about the channel and being consistent, a lot like dieting or fitness.
Let's move on. I know you're a runner. And I'm an eternal dieter. So we will move on. All right. So where I wanted to go with this next was to have a think about how we can learn about other channels, because it's taken me years to learn about LinkedIn, and the more I learn, the less I know. And I don't have the time or the bandwidth to want to go into the same degree of detail with other channels. Now, I accept that my understanding of LinkedIn has got a bit over the top, Stu. I really dived into it because I just love it. And I love the tribe and the people here and all those sorts of things. And I've learned about it, and because I've shared my journey, other people are learning about it too. And that gives me a really good feeling too. So, but I'm not prepared to do that with other channels at all. But you have said that we need to learn about other channels, and I understand that you've really got to learn a bit about the basics. So I think that I'm going to ask a question and probably give myself the answer. How do you learn about other channels, and is it just by simply being on them and observing and giving it a shot?
I think there's a really good angle to examine the question first, because this is a really, really important question, right? It does. So my first answer is, the question is confining us only to organic social media channels, right? So you're talking to the shoestring marketer here, right? So I work within a marketplace where everything has to be free, or otherwise I'm just not going to do it, because I'm a bloody New Zealander, or I'm a small business owner, and I have this mental block around spending money on marketing, right? Because it doesn't work. And so your second so if we go back to the very, very first problem, right? What's the problem of like over investing in one channel? Well, that channel could get removed from you, right? And then it's like, what am I going to do for the next 90 days while I rebuild my following and rebuild my audience and stuff like that, right? And is that going to be devastating to me, or is it just going to be annoying? So if we take what happens if I lose access to my primary channel that I love working on? Here's some quick wins, right? Which don't involve learning another social media channel. Number one, email marketing, right? So I'm going to tell you a story. One of the clients I worked with, I think it was during COVID, young Australian guy, Brock Ashby. So I will put into the comments after the session Brock's website. I'm sure he'll be stoked with me sharing his brand. Wonderful young guy on Instagram. When I met him, he had 250,000 followers. At least 80,000 of those were engaged and active. He just had this, like what people aspire to have, this gold mine of a business, right? He's an online fitness coach. So he worked from his home in Sydney. Very, very good, good looking dude to look at. Has his shirt off in a lot of his photos, but he's also really nice. So he's not just like one of these gross gym bros as well. And he was working with me on referral from his business coach because sales weren't as much as he was hoping for. He'd invested, all of his life and time into building this incredible online social media audience, and sales were trickling through, but it was always hard, difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So we focused on two things. He'd built up an email audience, right? And he was sending an email every single day to his whole audience, which I just blows my mind, right? Every single day he writes, and it's an inspirational email. Okay. And it's not always long. Sometimes it's like 5 words. Sometimes it's like 2 paragraphs. Sometimes it's like a whole discourse on, misogyny in gyms or on incorrect nutrition stuff. But he just shares his whole life and soul through email as well, right? So if Instagram was to go, he still had tens of thousands of people who read his emails.
Wow.
Guess what his channel problem was? He was asking for the sale at the wrong place in the channel funnel. That was it, right? And then when the ask went over to the website was awful. So we spent 2 months working on his website. That was the channel that needed the most effort in his channel mix. So I want to make sure that people are thinking, just because I'm doing okay on a lot of people get these metrics coming back saying, I must be doing well because I'm getting better engagement or followers or whatever. If the sales ain't coming through, you've got a channel mix problem, right? Because the sales ain't coming through, and we're not doing all this for fun generally.
Funny bit.
Yeah, Brock and I, we spent weekly, we caught up once a week for two months. He launched a new program. We realized that his offer was actually the biggest bottleneck, not the website. Then it was the way the offer was being. So we've reformatted his offer. We reformatted the website. We took a gazillion pieces of social proof that he had lying around, and we put them in one gigantic long form landing page. I'm really, really proud of him. He, in his first launch, and we went from an always selling to a exclusive launch model. Yes. So he was, every day he was dropping a story saying, hey, buy my thing. We turned that off for 2 months and held our breath, and we did one big launch day. On that launch day, within 4 days, he earned recurring revenue, which was enough to hire a full-time person in his company.
Oh, fantastic.
Good. It was incredible. And so now he's got a business machine, right? Mm-hmm. On top of that, he diversified. And so we take the program. He realized the content he was creating for this channel was going to work for another up-and-coming channel called TikTok. So he started repurposing all of the videos he'd been doing on Instagram and all of the images and putting them on TikTok. And he had to learn. He had to learn a lot because it's an entirely different platform. It looks the same, it smells the same, it feels the same, but it's different.
Okay.
But that's his channel diversification story. So he's de-risked himself from 2 of the channels going because he's still got his email.
Yeah.
Right, so he's achieved, like I said, I'm so proud of him. He's achieved such a really spectacular business success, and I really hope one day he becomes a marketing consultant, right? I really hope he just shares, because he knows so many detailed things about these channels that I would never fall into. So that's gonna one part of the question is, how do you go about learning these things? And so my first answer is you don't have to learn another organic channel, right? I've said email could be the other channel to work on. And I really encourage anything that you can do to directly communicate with your customer without an algorithm between is something to prioritize, right? So email or text messaging or WhatsApp groups, these are channels that are worth looking at, right? If you can add value to people,
on LinkedIn,
then you get that direct communication with them, and you're not trying to come up with something cute or trying to dance to music so that you get the attention, because even though you're a private group, still only 5% of the people see your posts, right? Which is horrific. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so you've got direct channels, which don't take a lot of learning, right? And those are the channels where you can actually get a consultant to help you set it up. But what I would recommend, just like me all those years ago, is when I did the Friday learning thing, I had a rule, right? And the rule was this: I'm not going to pay anyone anything for marketing unless they let me learn along the way with them.
Good idea.
So I'm not outsourcing unless I get a learning lesson as part of the process. And some people, it wasn't their gig. They're like, no, we just do this and give it to you. I'm like, well, sorry, I'm going to go to the person, even pay them more so that I walk away with the skills. Because I don't have to come back every month and have the website page updated by someone for $50.
No.
Right? I want to, this was the small business mentality that I was in at the moment. And I think that resonates with a lot of you out there. Right? So here's the other channels that don't take a lot of learning, right? Drum roll. Ads, right? So please don't write off advertising. It's why social media platforms exist, right? So the mere fact of the existence of Meta and LinkedIn says that people are getting clicks on their ads, and Google for that matter. So if your challenge is, look, I don't have time to learn another organic channel, I really don't, and I really just can't be bothered. I love LinkedIn, I'm chilled out about it, right? Here's a hack for you, right? Create a lead magnet, something that's really highly powered. It's another session that Lynnaire and I can perhaps do another day. It's like, but create something that people will generally want, right? And overservice them. So write the first chapter of your book, and we'll do a 1 hour course and record it, or even just an incredibly good checklist or something like that. Create your lead magnet on your primary channel, be it LinkedIn or whatever. Give that away regularly, every week or every month. Just give it away. Hey, by the way, for those of you who are new, here's my thing. DM it to people, get people on that lead magnet. They download that lead magnet, great. You might get their email address. But the other thing you can be doing once they arrive on that webpage is you could be remarketing from Facebook to them, right? And that's like really cheap advertising. And they know who you are because they're watching you on LinkedIn. You're getting access to these people from a different channel that they spend every day on, because people don't spend every day on LinkedIn unless they're crazy people like you and me, Lynette. So this is what we do with Revise, the software companies. We know that a lot of our target customers go to LinkedIn periodically, right? We know that through the stats that we get. Therefore, we know that it's a great place to find them, incredible place to find them. But to keep the conversation rolling, remarketing is really important to us. Right, and then email marketing sits behind that as well. So those are two channels that don't take a huge amount of learning. You can do 3 remarketing campaigns. You can set them up in a couple of hours. And there are a gazillion online courses to do that. And I will say there are a bunch of really good kind of Meta Facebook ads consultants who will do a pretty good job of a remarketing campaign for you if you just need that setup done. So, those are other channels that can be looked at. So you don't need to learn threads. You don't have to deal with toxic Twitter. You don't have to learn how to dance on TikTok. And you don't have to dance on TikTok, by the way. I want to really underpin that, right? It's like TikTok, sure, is known for that, but there's plenty of successful people just repurposing podcasts on TikTok.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right. I want to ask you then about how we measure success. On LinkedIn in the last year, there was a big move away from valuing impressions and organic reach. This is by LinkedIn rather than by us. And with placing more emphasis onto engagement. And certainly that has been borne out by the fact that impressions and reach has dropped or have dropped in the last, particularly last 6 months. And they foreshadowed that by doing the same with company page content the year before. And it's very hard, Stu, I think, to expect everybody after years of believing that viral reach is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, to suddenly turn around and expect people to understand that engagement is what we should really be after. But here's the thing. Engagement is where we can communicate with people directly, and where I believe the business opportunities lie, because we do business with people we know, like, and trust. And in order to do that, we have to have conversations with them. And conversations can start with engagement on LinkedIn. So you put up a post, somebody writes a really good comment, they're a second degree connection, you make a comment on their comment called an indirect comment, which not only helps your reach now apparently, but it means then that you've got a line of communication to them because they know who you are, they know your name, and you can then work towards building that relationship with them, having direct message conversations and putting them into your sales pipeline if there's an interest on their side. And so my question really is around the fact that when we are looking at our competitors on other platforms, we can't measure success in terms of those conversations they are having because we can't see those. But we can measure their success. Well, I don't think we really can, but we can see how their views are doing. But it's really got to be engagement, doesn't it? Where people are commenting on posts, that the real gold lies. So do comments like on LinkedIn really have an impact on that whole kind of engagement level with people? And does it start conversations, or do other channels work differently? Because say, for example, something on YouTube might be there for several years and you've only just discovered it. So what's the point of making a comment on it because the person who put it up is never going to see it? But how does that work then? So I'm asking about reach versus engagement, and then how we can tell whether our competitors really are doing as well as we think they might be from the numbers that they're getting.
Wow, good question. So let's start with a definition of what falls under the category of engagement. And I'm going to put, in my opinion, what are the highest priority forms of engagement, right? So, and what I think are the lowest forms of engagement. And again, this is from my testing amongst a broad bunch of channels and a broad bunch of customers and people that I've worked with on those channels. So, with a grain of salt, please. So number one, and this is what I say to people about any content, your best content is something that people instantly want to share with their friends. So the number one engagement to look for and to hope for and not ask for, but to write for, is a reshare on any channel, right? If you send an email out to 1,000 people and 100 of them resend that email out to people, you did well that day, right? And that's a rare thing to get people to reshare an email. It's got to be an incredibly good joke, or it's got to be an incredibly useful thing, or it's got to be something that no one knew about, and they get that like, oh, I'm sharing a little bit of like, spilling the tea, as they say. So number one is reposts, reshares, right? So if you're getting organic reshares, and you're looking at a computer and going, how well is this company doing? Is this person doing? On things like Instagram with Reels, you'll be able to see the little share icon and on your own. So that's number one, in my opinion. Number two, depending on the channel, so some channels have a save that you can look at from the outside, and certainly you can look at it from the inside. So when people save your content, particularly if it's business-oriented and educational, then that is an incredibly good cue to you. It's also a good cue to the algorithm that is a piece of content that they should start pushing up further into creating more. It's more chained reach, right? So
how do you measure that on LinkedIn, Stu? Sorry to dive off onto a tangent on this. How can you measure that on LinkedIn? Because that's not a metric that LinkedIn shares, is it?
Saving isn't a metric you can do on LinkedIn, but it is something that you can do on say Instagram and TikTok. And I believe, definitely on it's a playlist ad on YouTube, right? So versus so what's next down the chain? Comments is, again, as far as I'm concerned. So comments are gold, but a lot of people think only comments, and therefore there'll be this call to action in every one of their posts, which is like, what do you think, and ask a question. Sure, that works really, really well. I'm not downplaying it, but if that goes at the cost of coming up with something creative which people are actually going to organically reshare, then you could be missing out on something. Further down the chain are reactions, and there's a bunch of different types of reactions. So I don't know, but I feel like a like is a pretty benign reaction. So when I'm liking my friends' posts, I try and use love or funny or like something a little bit more emotive. And I don't know what scores are on each channels around that, but I just kind of think that if you just want people to like it, great, sure. They noticed it and they're giving you that nod, and then you're moving on. But as an example, I've had a post that has garnered hundreds and hundreds of likes and had bugger all reach as a result.
Yeah.
So,
that makes
I was
sense.
like, really? Didn't even get the whole audience reach, and it had hundreds of likes. Whereas, and let's lean into LinkedIn again, because we've got a big LinkedIn audience here today. The other engagements to think about is you've done a carousel post and people have like slid through all of the pages. Understand that the maths that I've done around my carousel posts in the past is each one of those little reads is another engagement, and those engagements from my testing is each one is more than a like, because I've had carousels that have had very few likes that have gone ballistic for me, and that can only be because people are sliding through the whole thing and reading the whole thing, because I'm giving them essentially a whole lesson in a topic. So carousels, and of course, that we love to hate them polls, right? Every one of those polls responses is an engagement. And again, if I was to look at my last 5 years worth of content in a row and look at the ones that get the deepest reach, which was a result of the reach was only a result of engagement. So the maths stacks up that polls, every time someone votes on your poll, that's an engagement. Okay. And then that broadens your reach. And so why is that something that I say to people, don't just hate on it, think about how can you use it productively and appropriately within your audience, is because the deeper your reach for every single post, the more humans, the more eyeballs get to see your name and your profile. They see your name and your profile, and you've written the profile because you've read Lynnaire's book and you know how to write a good title, subject line, and you've got the little button which says follow, then you've got a much greater chance of attracting more people to your post and to your authority and to your thing and to your gig and whatever it is you bring to the world, and then get that magical thing, which is a client. So, polls are somewhere above likes in terms of engagements. But to answer your question squarely, engagements are everything as far as I'm concerned. Followers are a low value metric to go after, right? Really, the metrics I encourage people to look at on LinkedIn and on their other, and just like that LinkedIn, that Instagram thing I told you beforehand, session I told you before this, you might have 20,000 followers, and you might do a post and it might go to 500 of them. Right, you might have 500 followers. You might do a post, and if it's a great post, it might go to 2,000 people. So, is it better to spend 5 years getting 20,000 followers, or is it better to spend 5 days trying to get a post that'll go to 2,000 people? Right, and this is a shift. The algorithms have pretty well been proven to have all evolved since Facebook launched the whole. If you have followers, you're going to get more popularity. They've all of them, including LinkedIn, including Twitter, are really about attention matrix rather than follower matrix. So it used to be followers were a big factor when you put a post out, how many people got to see it the first shot. Proven, and this has been disproven many, many times on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course on LinkedIn, that there's kind of the same number of followers who get to see your thing. Right, but if your followers are highly engaged with you and trust you, they're more likely to pause on you, right? So if you do have a good group of followers and they're highly engaged because you're feeding them lots and lots of stuff over time, then they're more likely to see your name before they see the headline and pause, just because you're someone of value that they see scrolling through, right? And so that's really important. It isn't just about a great headline or like a catchy video or something. your brand authority in the eyes of the humans who are scrolling is, I think, equally important. And you know, how do you achieve that brand authority? Is keep giving value.
Yes,
it's the only
agree.
way. Keep giving value, keep giving away all of your knowledge.
I think that and LinkedIn really allows people to do that in a really effective way by having all these different kinds of formats, and rewarding those posts that really do touch the right nerve, if you like. There's an awful lot involved in making that happen really well. So that does make a lot of sense to me. But I think it's really important that people understand, Stu, and you can agree to disagree or agree, whichever works for you, but the idea of simply taking a post from one from one platform to another without doing any work on making sure that it fits the platform that it's going to is just wasting everybody's time. And I think that it's important for people to understand that they need to know a little bit about the platform that they're going to be putting a post on and what works best there. And it comes back to your trial and error comment earlier on, where people need to test it out. You said to test it out for 3 to 6 months. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I couldn't agree more. And this is a topic that isn't spoken about enough, in my opinion, and that's about negative scoring. So there are all sorts of tools out there that you plug into your LinkedIn or you plug into whatever your content management system is, and they push them out to all of their channels at once, right? And we know, if we're on LinkedIn, we know that our content will do better if we're logged on regularly and we're liking other people's stuff, right? Because people have more attention towards us, and the algorithm seems to be more friendly to that. If we're an active LinkedIn user and active both from a posting but also from a viewing, engaging, commenting, connecting, messaging, our content does better, right? That's number one. The opposite is if we post every now and then and no one looks at our posts, my viewpoint, and this is just my belief, is that we're actually creating negative scoring. So let's talk about so imagine you're the algorithm, right? This is a wonderful little experiment I like to put in front of people. Imagine you're the algorithm and people are passing you pictures with notes on them in order to put out in a window, and you only get five every hour, and your job as the algorithm is to choose one to go out there, right? And you're going to choose them based, and it's your job to make sure that the people never walk away from the window, right? That's what an algorithm is. That's its job, is to make sure, because every now and then you put a red one out there, which is an ad, and you get paid for that, right? So that is the job of the algorithm. Now, people hand you a whole lot of stuff. Some of the stuff is like people just love it, right? So you're going to mark that person as a person I'm going to keep putting their stuff out there in my limited 5 posts per hour or whatever that I can put on the limited number of audience that I have out there. And then the same person just walks past and dumps a random photo like once a week. And every time you put that photo out there, it gets no attention.
Yeah, you're not going to bother, are you?
They've given it no intention. They've given it no effort. They don't understand the nature of the people who are looking at the window because they don't care. And therefore, are you going to pick it up or are you just going to discard it? And that's what's happening in the algorithm. This is my belief. Now, the other part of it is if the person does this forever, the more they do it, I think the lower in the rankings are going to go. Right? I think you're actually killing. I think it's better to not do anything with the way the algorithms are positioned now in a channel rather than do the bare minimum. Because if your bare minimum is crap, then you're actually negatively scoring your profile in the algorithm. And it remembers forever, right? So then I'm not saying that means you're killing your profile. I just mean it's going to take longer to work yourself back up. Versus, and I've done this, and so here's another example to prove this point, Lynnaire. You go quiet on LinkedIn for a month because something happens in your life or you just get fed up with it, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can just work back into it. And it doesn't actually take that long. Right? It's like it might take you a couple of weeks and then the reach comes back and the engagement follows and all of that sort of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But if you started, like if you had 2 months off, but you just posted garbage,
yeah,
right? Then your followers, the humans, are going to start switching off from you. And the one thing that algorithms are good at is they're good at recognizing that. So,
yes.
This is a topic I'm really glad you brought up because I just don't think it's spoken about enough. Is that like negative scoring because you just repurposing garbage.
Well, it's interesting because I've not heard of it before, so it is a fascinating topic. Perhaps we need another LinkedIn Live just about that topic as well. Stu, perhaps I need to book you in for every month this year, given the number of things we've talked about. And you know, we've been talking for an hour, and I've only got through about 3 or 4 of my questions on my list. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to say, because we like to keep these to a maximum of an hour, I want you just to see if you can give us one specific actionable tip that people can go away today and implement on any platform that you think might be helpful. It might be one of these cross-platform thing. I'm not sure, but one tip, one actionable idea that they can take away and use today.
I'm going to go back to you mentioned that I'm a runner. Right, and at the moment I'm coming back from injuries and pain and stuff, and I think the most important thing is to get yourself into a cadence, right? And the way to get into a cadence, which is regular, sustainable, is to really lean into one channel, right? Which goes against what we just talked about. Into one channel, and just commit to yourself that you're going to do it X times per week for 3 whole months, and just go and do it and for, you know, watch the engagement in order to learn, but don't care about the lack of engagement, right? Every time I've seen someone follow through with this, in the same way that people follow through with a diet after 2 or 3 months of just regular cadence of doing it all the time, the success, all of the other success just arrives, right? And so don't go chasing after viral, fad diet posts. They aren't going to bring you back the riches that you think they are, but what will bring you consistently new clients, field tested, field proven so many times, is just be consistent for a long period of time and be as super generous as possible with that knowledge that you're sharing.
Be consistent and be generous. If anybody who's watching this takes nothing else away, taking those 2 points away, I think, Stu, is going to be fantastic. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed today's conversation, and I am definitely going to come back to you about doing some more, because there is just so much gold in the kind of things that you have been sharing with us today. And I've been making a heap of notes as well. So I'm going to definitely go back over everything that you've been talking about and just sort of have a think about that for myself, because, of course, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this today was because I really feel I backed myself into a corner, and I want to see what else I can do. So thank you, Stu. We really appreciate it. We'll have you back here again as soon as we possibly can. And in the meantime, for everyone else, we've got some great events coming up from here on in. We've got our audio event next week. That's at the earlier time at 1 o'clock on Thursday of next week. And then we have also got, after that, on February the 8th, we're having another LinkedIn Live. We're going to the US this time, and we're going to be talking with Dan Domingue about leadership and LinkedIn. Leaders on LinkedIn don't really do as much as I think they could or should be doing. So we'll be talking to Dan from the Why Not Leadership organization about that. In the meantime, though, thank you so very much for joining us. We're very pleased to have had Stu here today. Thank you, Stu. And we will see you again here on LinkedIn for our next LinkedIn Live very soon. Thank you. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.